Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Energy Newsbeat podcast. My name's Stuart Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. Today is an absolutely epic podcast that you will want to sit back, get a cup of coffee, and just sit there and go, now, why can't I be like my two guests here? I've got Mike Umbro. Mike Umbro is one of the most cool Californians I know personally. He is out there and he is ready to just lay out what his opinion is, because he's not only an oil and gas man, he is actually an environmentalist. Thank you for stopping by the podcast.
Yes, sir. That's right, Stu. I appreciate that introduction. Thank you.
All right. And then we have the Ronald Stein. I mean, not just an imitator of Ronald Stein. This is the Ronald Stein. He is an author, a book. He's a friend of the podcast, and he is here to talk about an article that he and Mike wrote. Welcome. How are you today, Ronald?
They're fantastic. Ready to talk about it.
I'm going to just share a little inside baseball. Before we got started, I started calling Governor Newsom some names, and Mike was extremely quiet, and he was like, are we going to really say that and record it?
No.
Anyway, today we've got some big things. I want to hear about your article, what your joint article is about, and the hypocrisy of Governor Newsom destroying the entire California government is absolutely despicable. And Ronald Stein, you have done a great job in alerting our listeners to the hypocrisy of Governor Newsom and making California a security risk for the United States. This is huge.
Big time, big time. Yeah, in California, as you know, they've got a passion to transition away from fossil fuels, but they don't understand there's a supply-demand equation. And what California has done to transition away from fossil fuels is they only focus on the supply side, the oil production, the oil refining. They've done nothing about the demand. We keep increasing the airports, adding more hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. And Newsom doesn't recognize humanity is not addicted to fossil fuels. They're addicted to the products from fossil fuels. And wind turbines can make nothing. They make electricity. That's all. Solar panels, wind turbines and solar panels cannot make EV vehicles. The EV vehicle is 100% made from oil, all the thousands of parts. And that's the main difference. It's a supply-demand thing, and they have only focused on the supply. And the article talks about, on the side, someone in the waiting is China. They have 8 new refineries opening up in the next few years. In the long term, they got 80 planned, and they're going to be providing the products back to California. Now, the problem with California is we're an island. We're an energy island. We're separated from the rest of the country by the Sierra Mountains. There's no pipelines over the mountains. So all the fracking that was going on in the Midwest, we had zero access to that. The only way to get that oil to California is through the Panama Canal. It was actually cheaper to bring it in from foreign countries.
And so the Jones Act kicks in.
Yeah. So like I said, we're an energy island.
Well, it's that and the fact that you got to have the right product. I think that's often overlooked if you're not in the industry. Refineries in California are built to take and refine California heavy crude. So if you're not getting California heavy crude, you're getting heavy crude from somewhere else.
Let's see. Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, and then the China drilling out of, Mike, you've brought this up on the podcast before, 75% of the oil that comes out of Ecuador and the rainforest is from China companies, and that goes straight to California. What a mess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think what Ronald's talking about, what he's done consistently over his reporting on this issue is just present the facts and the data. And that's what we're all about. And we do that through nonprofit efforts at Californians for Energy and Science, but also just teaming up together on an article to say, look, Ronald and I, when we had breakfast last year, the year before, just talking about his work in the refinery space and having a company that is servicing refineries, and it's 10% of the country's refining capacity. So back to, President Trump and his agenda, it needs to be fixed. The solution is not shutting down 10% of the United States refining capacity. That's not the answer.
No. Hey, this energy security point, and Ronald, you hit it out of the park, because the California did not get cleaned up from the homeless people until President Z showed up. And I guarantee you, President Z and Gavin Newsom struck a deal in the back saying, hey, I'll screw up our economy so bad, we'll buy all of our gasoline and diesel from you. I'm not kidding. It would not surprise me if that conversation happened, a couple of years ago when it happened. Would not surprise me a bit. What a traitor.
The funny thing is, California has a special blend of California grade gasoline.
Yep.
We wind up getting our gasoline from China. I'm not sure they're going to be motivated to process a special blend just for California.
Well, it depends on how much we give back to them in a graft.
Well, I think also giving the benefit of the doubt. I mean, so right now we know there's a refining crisis. I don't think we should beat up on Newsom the person, but I think he's a believer, a firm believer in climate change. So understanding that's where he's coming from. Right. The solution in the way California and the California Air Resources Board has presented it to the people is clean burning electric vehicles. The only place you're going to get the lithium in the battery is China. We've all talked about that for years and years and years about the supply chain. So if he's assuming an adoption rate, if you look, and this is the main thing that they have to come to reality on the left, is if you look at the sales data in California, it's actually declined the last quarter, EV sales into the California vehicle market. It's never broken 22% of new vehicle sales. By 2026, they're assuming a 30% penetration. So they're assuming just in 1 year, it's going to jump another 10%. And then the next year in 2027, they're assuming like a 40 to 45% penetration rate on sales. And then the third year after that puts us at 2028. They're thinking half of all new vehicle sales are going to be electric vehicles. So that whole part of the EV equation, assuming our government is not in Sacramento is not cutting side deals with China, but just believing, okay, we're going to be sourcing these vehicles, we're going to be putting them on our roads, and they're not going to combust. So we're not going to have the. Go ahead.
The EVs have been selling. The elite's been buying them. The elites will continue to buy them.
Yes.
Mike and Stu, we're running out of elites.
Right. It's 20% of the market. It's been, you see in the economics.
Yeah.
Yes. I've got to make a choice. I've got such big trailers and everything else. I got to get a Ford 250 or Ford 350 or a Cybertruck. I can't buy both. And a Cybertruck with the biggest trailers I got to haul, I can't haul a trailer. Cybertruck's only going to pull it a block, before the battery goes dead.
You lose a lot of payload. You lose a lot of payload,
baby. But when you sit back and go, let's see, a Ford 250 or a 350 pulls a lot. And when you sit and do the mileage on it, I can go from here to Abilene without even hitting a gas station. In an EV, I can't even go half of that distance.
Well, yeah. And if you're talking about long hauling, which you are, and back to California, we import 40% of the country's goods from predominantly China and Asia Pacific
how do you
areas.
Get them outside?
And how do you get it here? You get it here on ships, and then how do you move it from here? You get it on trucks. And that's another big component. California Air Resources Board pulled their waivers when Trump came in for clean fleets. So that was set to hit in 2025, January 1st. All new heavy hauling fleets were going to be zero emissions. That gives you hydrogen or lithium batteries. The only reason it didn't happen is because President Trump won, and they didn't think they would get the waivers from the federal EPA. So we've seen a big, if that had happened as well, California would be even further into this energy crisis. Now we are in an epic crisis.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what are the odds that the hydrogen company, it is not going to happen. The hydrogen is not a viable option right now for long haul trucks. Hydrogen is not there. Now, LNG and compressed CNG, compressed natural gas, you can make China is going all in on propane, LNG, and long haul trucks because they're internal combustion engines. You can do those in a big haul environment, and the infrastructure would be a lot cheaper to put in, because how much did the Biden administration put out? I believe it was $8 billion for 7 chargers. Some ungodly number like that. If you put in compressed natural gas, that would make a lot more sense and get the emissions down. But at least let's get a talking point and a plan. I want to ask a real question. we've got Doug Burgum, and we've got Chris Wright. Chris Wright's been on the podcast about 4 times. You both have been on the podcast about 4 times. So you and Chris Wright, right up there with return victims. I mean, I guess. And so how do we get Doug Burgum, Chris Wright, and Lee Zeldin to work with California folks and legislator to get past this regulatory hellhole that California is in right now? Because this is a Ronald, you nailed it. California is a national security energy problem, but how do we articulate this to Lee Zeldin, Doug Burgum, and get this problem solved? Do we get a podcast and a meeting with all of them and start saying, let's have a group therapy hug and get this solved, even with or without Gavin Newsom? I don't know. I'm asking because you guys are in California.
I think it would start with a podcast. In fact, you could even invite Donald.
Yeah, I don't need a hug. I need a permit. So I think, I think what we're already seeing, how does it happen? I think the framework's been laid out. You've got
Mike. I'm sorry. I am going to make a T-shirt out of that.
Oh yeah.
I don't hug. I need a permit.
As long as 5% of the proceeds goes to Californians for Energy and Science, you can do that. We'll approve it.
Okay. Yeah. A franchise fee.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I don't. I don't think anybody needs a hug. We need a permit. I think the whole country, the conversation really needs to go from drill baby drill to permit baby permit. And I think that's the signals. The first 100 days of this administration, I'm hearing that loud and clearly from Secretary Wright, Secretary Burgum, and Secretary Zeldin. And Secretary Zeldin was just here in San Diego talking about the Tijuana sewage spill. I love that. It's a continuous problem. It's something that I think they're coming after it and saying, look, let's solve today's environmental problems. Let's not pretend that we need to track carbon like it's calories and we need to restrict economic vibrancy and vitality in the name of carbon counting. Let's get down to building, and it starts with permits. And they're all on board. The executive orders are there, and we as operators need to file for the permits and push and tell Washington, D.C. we have permits at the state agencies. They're waiting on nothing but pressure. Please help pressure them.
I love the way you said that, Mike, because I know I'm not going to go buy a Tesla Cybertruck and have it identify as a Ford 350, and it won't make the long haul that I need to make just because it identifies as a Ford 350.
To further point out why we need the permits, when you take a look at the products that come out of the refineries, diesel fuel, we're the second largest transportation fuel used in California because we have so much trucks. And Arizona gets almost 50% of their fuel from California refineries.
Your article's 10 million gallons a day of diesel to support the state's 35 million registered vehicles. Holy smoke.
When you take a look, we're a big state. There's 145 airports. Most of them are small. But there's 9 international airports, 41 military airports. We're the largest jet fuel consumer in the country. Wow. And where's that jet fuel going to come from if you don't have permits to run the refinery and permits to get the oil to the refinery?
I think Z has got a phone call coming in here. Wait a minute, President Z. Yes, he heard us. He wants to sell us all the jet fuel we want to buy.
And that's happening. We're importing more finished product than we ever have. The refining complex is 80 to 100,000 barrels a day short of finished product today, before these next 2 refineries closed down, and probably a third in Wilmington. So you're going to have 25% of the refining capacity vanish from this market in 1 year.
Wow.
And the idea of importing it from China may not happen because we're putting more and more pressure on the marine facilities.
Right. Exactly.
So we may not be able to even bring it in.
Wow. This is a horrific problem that we're talking about today, guys.
It is. Well, and I think what happened, I think the tipping point with the refineries being required by the California Energy Commission to store more product on the refining grounds, I think they said, look, you're asking us to improve our current tankage or build more tankage. That's going to cost me billions of dollars in California to add a tank. Good luck getting CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, getting through that process to build just a tank. Yeah. So now,
you
so
can't
what,
even get
so
Palisade houses built. How do you build a tank?
right. And then now as an operator of that asset, they're saying, I can't invest billions more to be a storage terminal, an import storage terminal, when I can't even operate the refinery. I would rather just walk away, take the write down and walk away. And so that's what's woken up the state. The fact that the Atlas Shrug is like, wow, full force. It's on. The idea that we can just import finished product instead of refine it is just insanity.
In the amount of transportation problems that this is arising, is those tankers that come in, they spend X number of days on the ship. They come in and then they have the piping. Then you have this talk about ruining emissions. If you're trying to be a net zero economy and you're trying to pull this crap, you're not thinking past the refrigerator. I mean,
they're
terrible.
really accomplishing net zero within the borders of California. All those emissions outside the borders, they don't count.
No, the Great Wall of China is a magical one that holds all of their coal fumes in. China keeps it all in.
Darn right.
And I think that's largely what's going to be a renaissance in the environmental movement. I think younger generations understand data. They're not, of course you see on media outlets, they're going to report the people gluing themselves to the streets and the people that are thinking that's going to, cause awareness. It's not. Everybody's dependent upon this. So then you get to the younger generation, you say, okay, how do we fix this? Do you want 2 to 4 times more tankers coming in on the water? Californians do not. Californians go to the beach. We like our marine ecosystems. We don't want to see more tankers. When you explain it to people, you say, look, do you want this produced onshore on existing facilities across the state of California, places that you've never heard of or been to, as someone, you're not going to the west side of Kern County on family vacation. It ain't happening. So, you explain this to the younger generations, that's what's going to bring this movement towards onshoring and unleashing California.
Tell us about your nonprofit there, Mike, because education, Ronald Stein is a industry thought leader by trying to make conversations. But what are you doing for the next generation, and what are you doing there?
Exactly that. Working with people like Ronald to say, hey, reporting on this matters. Having the facts out into the ecosystem of thought, it needs to be done. And if we're not doing it, and he does a great job of just constantly doing it every day in and day out with reporting, that's what we're trying to do with students. So we're going on campus at places like UC Berkeley, Stanford, Harvard, Taft Oil Tech Academy at the Taft Union High School, Cal State
Energy,
Cal State
Kirk of
Bakersfield.
Energy. Is that what you are, Mike?
Yeah, and I don't even think it's I obviously he's drawing massive crowds, and we're not trying to sure, if that many people want to come talk about the environment, I think politics gets people riled up a little bit, but maybe the environment is that interesting to everybody too. It certainly is to us.
It should be.
But the students, what I focus more on is the quality of the conversation. I would much rather go and lecture to 20 kids at the Haas School of Business that are some of the hardest working minds that most of them have an engineering background, and having a conversation about, hey, they're shutting down the refineries. They're shutting down the oil fields. Those are, you want to do chemical engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, petroleum engineering, all the disciplines, geology, whatever you're into as a brain, as a mind, all those jobs are going away. And you're studying at the UC Berkeley or Stanford or Cal State Bakersfield, wherever in California, top universities, what are you going to do when you're done? There's no jobs for you. And that's all you need to say. And that's the message we're delivering. And what better way to say, okay, live in California, make $130,000 a year starting. You're probably, if you're going to be in it long enough, you're going to be making $250,000 a year. You're going to be doing what you love in the best state in the country. That's the future for California. We've reached the bottom. So let's stop talking about how bad it is, and let's talk about how we're going to unleash, and we're all going to get rich together. rich
I like
in it.
the way you think.
Yeah, we're going to make money together. We're going to save the environment together. We're going to talk about it together, and that's equity. We all get to enjoy those benefits.
Well, Ronald, how do we get, because you're the head poobah of making energy discussions happen here. We're going to put a panel together. Let's get Lee Zeldin, Doug Burgum, and Chris Wright, and let's have a little bit of heart-to-heart California little panel here and try to figure out what we can do, because this is important that we get the regulatory issues. I don't need a hug. I need a dang permit.
Yeah. Well, Stu, I like, Mike, I like conversations. And that's my passion. In all the articles I write, I'm trying to stimulate conversation because, jumping out of the airplane without a parachute, time out. Let's talk about it.
I want to do it.
That's right.
I'm also of this main mindset with both of you. Let's have a conversation, but let's get a plan. Because we are at the point that if we don't fix our elections, we're going to end up like Canada. We're going to end up like Canada with their rigged election that just happened. We're going to end up totally out of control. And if we don't get our elections fixed before the midterm, we will not be our same country again, because we got to get rid of the rhinos and the Democrats that don't care about our country. I'm sorry. If I offended a Democrat or a rhino, please come on the podcast. I would love to visit with you. I will even travel to you. I want to talk to everybody about their energy policies. We've got to get it fixed and get to the next level.
Yeah, the one thing they're not addressing, if they really want to reduce the oil industry, you got to reduce the demand. They're doing nothing about that. In theory, shut down all the airports, shut down all the hospitals. That would reduce a lot of demand. We may lose a couple of billion people. We'd clean up the air.
We got to keep you away from the politicians because they really do want the population to decline, and so let's keep you away from that.
Okay,
let's keep you in the corner. We want the population to grow. I'm more along the lines with Elon. We need more people. Our birth rate is too small. We need more people, and we got to get rid of this mindset now. The United States, when we take a look at California was energy independent, in the 70s? That was producing
80s, 90s, up until you saw a really big 2000 was really, that's
before the embargo. Before the embargo, we were importing 5% from foreign countries. Between California oil production and Alaska, it was 95% of the demands of the state. Since that time, we've gone from 5% dependent on foreign imports to about 70% of imports.
How's the Alaska mix go into the California refineries as they stand today? Could we just pump up a lot? I don't know the blend there very well between Alaska in California. That to me seems to be, I would rather just put
what's the blend? What's the question?
What is the oil blend out of Alaska? Is it importable to come?
Absolutely. Of course. Yes, it was. We were built for California and Alaskan crude. So as Ronald was saying, 95% of the crude was supplied by our two states in the 80s and 90s. There's no reason why that can't happen again. I don't understand
why we can't just make a federal mandate and say if it's not coming out of Alaska, that it's the Jones Act fault. I'm sorry, but you can't import anything else unless it.
Stu, as Mike pointed out, we have this great ocean to look at, and we don't want this offshore drilling. Well, with today's technology, there's a lot of oil offshore, but you don't have to drill offshore. You can slant drill. You can drill on land, drill and pick it up, but you need a permit.
You need a permit. That's true. And what you're going to see on this topic of coastal drilling and why you should support it. Oil was identified by the Chumash in thousands of years ago in Santa Barbara County. And so how did they discover it? It's oozing out of the ground. Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, Kern County, you're sitting on prolific oil reservoir that's Mother Nature. That's been there. It's going to be there. And if you don't produce it, you're going to see more of it on your beach. That's just the fact of the matter. And if you don't produce it, you're going to see more tankers on your waters. And the combination is terrible outcome for the environment. 7 of the 10 largest spills in the United States, oil spills, are tankers, not drilling rigs. Of course, the blowout in the Gulf of Mexico, and of course in Santa Barbara in 69. But aside from from that, the platform that you see behind me on the wall,
I love it.
It's not leaking anything. It's a closed system producing oil and gas from a reservoir that if it was not produced from, it would be oozing into the ocean at a rate of over 5 million gallons a year, according to NOAA. So it's science and data.
For our podcast listeners, Mike Umbro has upped his game on his set and his podcast set, and he's got a beautiful oil derrick behind him. He has got the California Dreamers doing a beautiful surfing in front of it. He's got the Umbro diamond behind him, baby.
That's I gotta let my light shine.
That's right. Ronald, you and I got to have a conference call after this, and I got to get mine. I got to notch my game up to Umbro size things.
There you go.
We're not going to supersize it. We got to Umbro size it.
Yeah, I've had that in my childhood bedroom. So that neon sign's been with me a long time.
How cool is that? I want to go ahead and take an action item for today, and let's see if we can't get Lee Zeldin, or if we can't get Doug Burke, or we can't get Secretary Wright to sit down and say what can be done to focus on importing from Alaska. Because if you look at the dark fleet that's out there right now, the Biden sanctions over the 20 years, you have Iran. Yeah. Iran learned how to create the dark fleet. The dark fleet is now up to about 1,400 tankers. Of those 1,400 tankers, there's 138 of them are LPG tankers. Of the mix, you get tetanus. You need a tetanus shot just from looking at some of these tankers. And they just had 3 Russian dark fleet tankers sink. Who's going to pay for that crap when it sinks? Because they're not maintained well. This dark fleet is going to be showing up off the California coast, and they're buying a mix of Malaysia is just signing a deal with China. That Malaysia deal is more oil than they produce. Oh, where are they getting it? They're getting it from Iran, Iraq, Russia, and all this kind of stuff. So you sit back and kind of think, do you want ecologically well-produced and controlled, environmentally friendly oil and having low-cost energy? This is starting to make sense. Or do you want to have an internationally pirated rust bucket that you need a tetanus shot before it blows up on your coast? I'm not sure. It's pretty easy for me to decide.
Well, so, just like the Stark Fleet, the book I wrote, Clean Energy Exploitation, it's the same thing. We're basically promoting EV batteries, but they're made from all the exotic minerals and metals in developing countries. We're exploiting people with yellow, brown, and black skin. The environmental degradation over there is atrocious, but that's okay. We're going green. It's unethical and immoral.
The energy hypocrisy that we laugh about Gavin Newsom, but he's doing very serious damage to California and the United States. And Mike, I owe you a deep gratitude for the way that you have said, because being the Texan that I am, and you can see my cowboy hat behind me here, I sit back and go, let's just put a wall up and call it a day. No, you say, look, if you really want President Trump to have a good midterm election, he's got to fix California's problems, because it does impact. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. And
this became the 4th.
Well, the beauty of this is California is going to be a Republican state in the next election because of these policies, and that's why I believe they will moderate. I think you're seeing Senator Henry Stern in committee last week say he's been enlightened and reborn, and he wants to unleash stuff
between now and.
I don't think I don't think it'll matter. I think even if there was election fraud, the utility rates in California are astronomical. They're adding fixed fees to everybody's utility rates. Nobody's happy with that. It doesn't matter what demographic you're in. 1 in 5 Californians are in arrears on their utility bills. That's reality. Nobody can afford these policies, and gasoline prices, when these 2 refineries close and the 3rd one in Wilmington closes and there's 25% of capacity gone, you're going to have a floor at $8 gasoline. That will be the floor. Beyond that, there will be some trading volatility with the global market, but it ain't ever going to go below $8 a gallon at a California gas pump again. And that will cause the thing about this energy policy boomerang is if they don't fix it fast, it gets worse and worse and worse, and then you're locked in. It does not matter what kind of election fraud there is. You will lose control.
30 cents.
They will lose power in Sacramento. There will not be a supermajority anymore, for sure. Wow. It will all go away. So that's why they're going to change this policy. They want to win the next election. They cannot with these policies.
You know, I was visiting with several folks in Europe, and on one of my podcasts, I basically said, regimes change with bad energy policies. And
yes.
You nailed it, Mike. You absolutely nailed it.
As Mike was talking about $8 gasoline, we're currently at like $5.50 for gasoline. And that's, and most of the state makes more profit than the refineries. You know, if you exclude the cost of the crude oil, the posted price, there's a lot of refinery processes and profits, but you got all of the regulations and, high-speed rail. We're still paying for the high-speed rail as part of our gasoline prices. And
that's a boondoggle.
Yep.
And it died.
50 to 60 cents a gallon is climate programs. That's cap and trade. That's low carbon fuel standard. To what Ronald's saying, it goes to pay for these special projects like high-speed rail.
That is gone, 1 mile?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a joke. It's not even you're not even gonna see it connected from Bakersfield to Merced. It's not even gonna happen because the federal funding is gonna go away. So I think it would be great to have a policy conversation. I think the policy's there, though. That's the beauty of what these secretaries have been empowered to do. It's there. We need to present the projects, the drill bit ready projects, the shovel ready projects to these secretaries, and then say, hey, look, these refineries are gone. We can't afford to lose anything else. It's like losing a nuclear power plant. It's like losing San Onofre up north of me in 2013. That devastated us. We're all paying the price for that closure. The refineries are no different. This is national treasure. This is a big effing deal.
I think a big effing deal is an understatement, Mike.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I just appreciate both of you. And Ronald, how do people get a hold of you?
Just Google my name. I'm all over the internet. That's probably the best way to reach me.
Oh, yeah. I'm afraid what people will do is they Googled me. But Mike, how do people find you?
Energyandscience.com.
Energyandscience.com.
Yep. You'll see what we're all about right there.
I absolutely love it.
Well, if you put my name down in energy literacy, I'll pop up and you can connect to me.
Okay. That sounds so good. Thank you guys so much. And I know that we will have you back again because this is an urgent United States energy crisis we are in right now. I mean, with President Trump signing his energy emergency, this ought to get some attention. Because I know Chris Wright's already aware of this, but I think this, I don't need a hug. I need a permit. Hey,
I'll be in DC in 2 weeks. So if you talk to your boys in office, let me know. I'll go meet with them. I'll go bring them my permits. They can they can see exactly what we're trying to build. And I would love for the DOE to be my lead agency on that and get it permitted. Let's go.
Let's see if we can get it. I'll get on a plane and let's get up there and go do a podcast live in their lap. I mean,
sure.
Just in their office. Let's go.
Yeah. I don't be in any of their laps. Like I said, I don't need a hug. I just need a permit.
And with that, we are going to call this a podcast wrap. Hey, have a great day. We will talk to you all soon. For everybody, this is Stuart Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. We will talk to you all soon.
Take care. Have a great day.